Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mark Henry Jr., and you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _, and you can follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod, and you can follow the Painted Lines at the Painted Lines. Sorry for the no heads up that I'm going late here on Friday night. I'm doing the pod on Friday night to try to make sure as many people can get these picks in as possible, as opposed to what I've been doing, which is on Saturday mornings, trying something new. If you have any thoughts on when I should go live with these picks, when I should do the pod, let me know in the comments. And if you have any picks or thoughts about my picks that I'm going to go through in this pod, please leave them in the comments. So let's get into the picks for Saturday's slate, mostly the night slate. I don't love the early afternoon slate. Love the night slate for this Saturday college football slate tomorrow night. Behind me, got the Zach Ertz jersey. Shout out Zach Ertz. Shout out to having a hell of a career here in Philadelphia. But this is a college football show, so let's get down to it. On Saturday at noon, I like Rutgers in a pick'em at Northwestern for 2 units on the Big Ten Network. This will be a hard-nosed Big Ten football game between Greg Schiano's Rutgers and Pat Fitzgerald's Northwestern Wildcats. Both teams looking for their first Big Ten wins, and I'm looking to chop on with Rutgers. I got this at a pick'em. It has moved to -2. I would still take it. Northwestern is coming off a loss to Nebraska, which is the worst in their program's history since Fitzgerald's first year in 2006, losing 56-7 to Nebraska. For the first time in a month, this Rutgers team is not playing a ranked team. Northwestern is, in fact, not Michigan, Ohio State, or Michigan State, which are all in the top 10 and represent all of Rutgers' 3 losses in the conference and in general. I just think this is a simple bet here. Rutgers is a much better team and more competitive team offensively and defensively. I'm going with the Rutgers over Northwestern to win this game for 2 units, and I would still take it where it's at -2. At 3:30 in the big game of the day where College Game Day is going, the CBS game of the day, I like Kentucky +24 at Georgia for 1 unit. Georgia is back at number 1 for the first time in more than a decade, and the first time since the 80s during the regular season. Georgia has allowed 5.5 points per game, and that includes a pick 6 when the defense wasn't even on the field. The Bulldogs have outscored all opponents this season by a combined 239-33. I know everyone loves Georgia. I know those stats are impressive, and I know everyone loves this defense and thinks Kentucky has no shot to score on this team. But Kentucky's off to its best start since 1950. This is still a Georgia team that only put up 10 in a 10-3 win against Clemson. That is not impressed at all, since especially offensively. This is still a Georgia team that hasn't really figured out who their QB is between JT Barrett and Stetson Bennett. This is still a Kentucky team that handled Florida, which is a team that went in and really competed with Alabama. So I think people are undervaluing Kentucky here, including Vegas, and I think that they're taxing it because the conversation has been so heavily towards Georgia, especially after that Alabama loss. So not only do I like Kentucky to cover this spread at 24, I would take a swing at Kentucky at +1,200 on the money line against anyone in the country. And so I guess that includes Georgia. So I will stay loyal to Kentucky. I think they cover, and I think Georgia's offense is vulnerable and injured enough to let a team hang around. And there will be a game this year where it seems like they could lose because they can't score. I think it could be this one. So I think, not that I think Kentucky's going to win the game, I just think +1,200 is worth it, worth a chance on it. So let's get to a pick that I don't really like anymore. I took this, I'm kind of iffy on it now. But I took Pitt, Virginia Tech over 57.5 for 2 units. These are not your father's Pitt Panthers. These Panthers are leading the nation in scoring at better than 52 points per game and have scored at least 41 in all 5 of their games, which is the longest streak in Pitt history. Pitt is 5-0 on the over this year with games that finished 73, 84, 85, 75, and 59 points in their 5 games for an average of 75 points per game on the total. Virginia Tech is coming off the game against Notre Dame, who is nowhere near as high-powered offensively as Pitt, in which it finished at 61 points. I expect a similar game. The Hokies will be without linebacker and defensive signal caller Dax Hollifield for the first half after he was flagged for targeting in a disappointing loss to the number 14 Notre Dame. That can't hurt the over, that they're one of their best defensive players is out. But you look at Pitt, and that's really the reason we're riding this over. And it's quarterback Kenny Pickett, who has thrown at least 4 touchdown passes in his last 3 games and 19 on the season with just 1 interception. I took this at 57.5. It's down to 56. I wish I waited and I wish I got it at 56, but that's the game you play when you bet on games on Monday or Tuesday. I think that this might be it might be trending down because of the heavy winds that are forecasted. I still like it. I would still take it even with the winds that are forecasted. Over 57.5 in Pitt, Virginia Tech, down to 56 now. I would take over 56. So now let's get to the night slate. And this is where my real big picks are coming in. There are, let me check, 4 games here that I absolutely love starting at between 7:30 and 8:30. And so I had 3 picks overall on the noon slate in the early afternoon, 4 picks on the night slate. Got Saturday Night Fever. At 7:30 in a Big 12 matchup, I like Kansas State +7 versus Iowa State for 3 units on ESPN2. And I also like Kansas State +210 versus Iowa State for 2 units. Iowa State has not beaten the Wildcats on the road in 17 years. That not only predates Iowa State coach Matt Campbell and K-State coach Chris Klieman. It goes all the way back to Bill Snyder at Kansas State, and the stadium is literally named after Bill Snyder now. So K-State has won 11 of the last 13 matchups. They've won their last 7 home games against Iowa State and 14 of their last 15 home games against Iowa State. Everyone loves Matt Campbell. He's a darling. Every NFL job, every college job that opens up, he's a candidate. I'll take Chris Klieman all day. I think he's a great coach and one of the most underrated in the country. The quarterback for Kansas State, Skylar Thompson, came back last week after injury and threw for 320 yards and played great, but still looked a little rusty with a week off. I think he looks even better in this game. K-State beat Stanford and Nevada, who both look like pretty good teams, and they competed with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, who are much better than Iowa State, in my opinion, and only lost to OU by 6. Why can't they do the same or better against Iowa State? In Iowa State's only 2 legitimate games, they've gotten blown out by Iowa and lost a game to Baylor. So with these resumes, I will gladly take K-State as a home dog of a touchdown when I think they're the better team here, and I think maybe they should even be favored. So obviously, I like them at +7, and I think they're worth a hefty sprinkle on the money line, and I think a big part of this, and you'll hear me talk about this with someone else later, Vegas thought Iowa State was going to be really good this year. They don't appear to be as good as Vegas thought they were going to be, and Vegas hasn't adjusted. And there's been money to be made against a couple teams in college football, 2 of which are about to be named, but not in this next game. Coming up next in my next pick, I like Stanford in a pick'em at Washington State for 4 units, and I like Washington State team total under 26.5 for 1 unit. Wazoo has finally gotten going this year, and now they have a weirdo nightmare coach situation after winning 2 straight Pac-12 games. Their head coach, Nick Rolovich, refuses to get vaccinated and is applying for a religious exemption since the state of Washington is mandating vaccines, so they don't know if he can coach on Saturday or going forward. So, I mean, the last 2 games, they upset Oregon State, they beat Cal, but this Stanford team has a much more explosive offense than Oregon State or Cal. Stanford's quarterback, Tanner McKee, is an NFL prospect at this point and has thrown for 1,449 yards and 12 touchdowns with just 3 interceptions, all of which were in a loss to a very good Arizona State team and defense last week. Wazoo has won 4 straight in this matchup, but I think Stanford breaks that streak. Stanford has played 4 ranked opponents already this year and is 2-2 on those games, while Wazoo hasn't played a single ranked team, and Stanford will have been their toughest test so far this season. I have been all over teams this week that have played tougher opponents so far than the team they're facing, because I think that they have seen the level of competition and they're going to be able to raise their game when these other teams are playing in their first real big taste of a big matchup. I know the transitive property game is foolproof sometimes, but Stanford beat 14 while Wazoo lost to USC by 31 at home. I think that shows the massive gap here between Stanford and Wazoo, and I think this line is an overreaction to Stanford's loss to a good Arizona State team and Washington State's win over a potentially bad Oregon State team and a definitely bad Cal team. I also like the under here the team total under here for Washington State at 26.5 when they've scored under this total in 3 of their last 4 games, while Stanford held a much more explosive Oregon team to 24 points. So I'm on Stanford pick them at 4 units, and I'm on Washington State team total under 26.5 for 1 unit. Moving on to the next game at 8 o'clock, I like Army plus 14 at Wisconsin, and I like Army plus 460 at Wisconsin. 4 units on the spread, 1 unit on the money line. The question here is, do you support the troops, folks? That's the important question. I know Army just lost to Ball State. They're troops. Some things are bigger than sports, as Rico Bosco says. They had other things on their mind. They might not have gotten up for Ball State, but with 2 weeks to prepare, they will get up for Wisconsin, and this will be a close game. This is still a big game for Army. I'm not sure any game is a big game for a beaten down Badgers fan base at this point. Army will be attempting to beat a Power 5 team since 2017, so you know they'll be ready. But in that time span, they've caused some close calls for Michigan, Oklahoma, and West Virginia, playing them all close in one-score games on the road. And all of those teams were better than this Wisconsin team, and this might be the best Army team in years. So there's no reason they shouldn't be able to keep it close if they were able to with those teams in years past. Army is number 3 in the country against the run, and Wisconsin cannot throw the ball. This is a Wisconsin team that has scored 17 or less in 3 out of 5 games this week, which gives you some cushion at that plus 14 number for Army. Each of these teams loves to keep the offense on the field. Army leads the nation in average time of possession. Wisconsin ranks 4th. But Army is much better at protecting the football with 3 turnovers as opposed to Wisconsin's 14. Army is also number 3 in the country in average field position, and their offense is 25th in the country, while Wisconsin's is 117th. So I think the troops cover 14, and I think they have a legitimate, real chance to pull off the upset in Camp Randall. So I'm riding with Army plus 14 for 4 units, and I'm on the money line for 1 unit with a big swing. And then with my best bet, my bet of the day, my lock of the night, I've got UCLA, as you see right here. Shout out Chip Kelly. I know that might make some Eagles fans upset. UCLA plus 2 at Washington for 6 units on Fox in the Fox game of the night. This is a must-win game for both teams. The Bruins are averaging 217 yards per game rushing, while the Huskies are 10th in the Pac-12, giving up 173 yards per game on the ground. Washington's offense has sucked thus far this season. They rank 11th in the Pac-12 in yards rushing, 10th in total offense, and 8th in scoring offense. So you look at UCLA on the other end of that, they're top 5 in almost every important offensive category in the Pac-12. This is a UCLA team that has played 6 legitimate Power 5 teams and is 4-2 against or straight up and against the spread, while Washington is 2-3 straight up and 1-4 against the spread with a outright loss to an FCS team in Montana. So in my opinion, this is a massive overreaction to UCLA losing to a good Arizona State team and struggling in a win last week against Arizona that they still ended up covering. I get that Vegas thought Washington was going to be good and there must be talent on the team, but they have to change their power ranking on them because they're just not who they thought they were, and their against the spread record shows that at 1-4. I'll ride with Chip Kelly and UCLA's excellent rushing attack all the way to my best bet this week at 8:30. So if you heard something similar there with Washington, with Wisconsin, with Iowa State, I think these are teams that Vegas looked at before the season as teams that could be really good this season. They have not lived up to that. Vegas has not adjusted their power ranking. So I'm trying to, find the market inefficiencies here. And I think that they're overvaluing these teams that they expected too much from to start the year. So let's summarize my picks for anyone that's joining late. At 12 o'clock, I like Rutgers on the pick'em for 2 units over Northwestern. At 3:30, I like Kentucky plus 24 at Georgia for 1 unit. And I like Kentucky plus 1,200 on the money line at Georgia for 1 unit. I have Pitt, Virginia Tech over 57.5 for 2 units at 3:30. At 7:30, I have Kansas State plus 7 versus Iowa State for 3 units. Kansas State plus 210 on the money line versus Iowa State for 2 units. I have Stanford on the pick'em at Wazoo for 4 units. I have Wazoo team total under 26.5 for 1 unit. I have Army plus 14 at Wisconsin for 4 units, and I have Army plus 460 on the money line at Wisconsin for 1 unit. That's at 8 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. And then last but not least, my best bet, my bet of the day, my lock of the night at 8:30, I have UCLA plus 2 at Washington for 6 units. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the Tough Cover Click, and enjoy the winners.